Hello everybody, thank you so much for clicking on this video. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate everybody that watched my previous video. It really means a lot. Thank you so much. So a few of the comments that I got from my previous video were about algae. A lot of people saying that they are scared to enter the hobby, or they're scared to re-enter the hobby, or they're considering leaving the hobby because they just can't handle algae, and it's such a battle that is so infuriating that it just takes away from the pleasure and the joy of this hobby. So based on that, I have decided to purposely let my algae grow amok. And I did it in a very simple way. I just didn't maintain the algae. Didn't change any light schedule. In fact, I actually reduced my light a little bit just to alleviate the algae growth a little, or slow it down a little bit. But hey, it's still growing. It's still growing pretty rapid. I reduced feeding a little bit, but yeah, algae is just one of those things that it is gonna come. But there is a really easy way to make sure that it's not a problem, that it's not a hassle, and that it doesn't get out of hand. So before I show you how I maintain algae and keep my tank looking presentable, we just got to talk about what is algae. Algae is something that kind of spontaneous, it's a type of basic plant, essentially, that that exists because it's serving actually a purpose. It's actually there to consume excess nutrients. So one of the best ways, if you are getting a lot of algae, to treat that problem is to just make sure your feeding regimen is adequate for the amount of livestock that you have in there. I know myself, I love these fish, and I want to keep them fed, and I feel like every morning they know that they haven't been fed yet, and they'll keep coming up to this front of the glass if they haven't been fed yet. And once they're fed, they'll go about and go to the back of the tank. So I feel like they know that it's the new day and it's time to get some food. So I'm always tempted to feed them more, just because you know, they're a pet. But when you do feed a bit aggressively, or feed in heavy quantities, what's actually happening is they're gonna just eat the first bits of food that's coming by them, the food that's looking a little bit more active. And if you're wondering what I feed just this Vipergram Nature. It's basically a dried up bug food, and what I like about this one in particular, it's got spirulina in it, which helps color up the fish and the corals a little bit. So I choose that food. But anyway, so the first bits of food kind of looks like the insects and the little bugs that they would be eating. So a lot of the food actually ends up in the sand, or if you don't have the sand, just on the bottom. And I do have some fish that eat from the gravel, but most of my fish, once the food has hit the ground, they leave it. So that food is just going to sit there. And there's some little spaghetti worms and bristle worms that have grown to consume that, but they're not going to be able to consume all of that. So that food is going to end up starting to decay, and it's going to start releasing nitrates. And that's going to be a perfect source of nutrients for the algae to start growing, because that's the purpose that algae is there to serve. It does clean the water. So this tank is actually not a dirty tank right now. This is actually a pretty clean tank. Why? Because not only is the corals consuming nutrients, I've got some plants in here, aka algae, that's also consuming the nutrients. So it doesn't look the prettiest. This tank isn't very presentable right now. I had some guests over recently, and I couldn't really show them the splendor of my beautiful corals because all this algae was in front of it. So I'm really happy that I've gotten it to the point right now where I'm ready to show you and make this video and show you what it's like to or how easy and simple it is to clean this up. I'll also be doing a water change today. That's another thing. Water changes can help. It does help, but with nano tanks, you're not really doing a water change to remove excess nutrients. There's enough of a biochemical process going on in here in terms of the corals consuming the excess nutrients. You're mainly doing water changes in these nano tanks to replenish trace minerals, especially to keep your alkalinity up and your pH up to the levels that corals need. So yeah, so algae is really not something to be scared of. Here's how you can know if algae is a problem for you. If your tank, if you clean your tank with whatever method you choose, or the method that I'm going to show you soon, if after doing that, in the evening or in the next day, or by the end of the next day, you're already seeing algae accumulation again, then you know something is up. Then you know either your light is too powerful, or your photo period, your light duration is too long. Those are two very easy levers that you can manipulate to control the algae. You want to get your tank to where you can leave it for about 4-5 days, and then you should just see a light bit of algae starting to accumulate by then. After a week, yes, it's going to start looking a little bit more like this, but that's normal. It's normal for about after 4-5 days for some algae to start to develop, and that's why it's so helpful to learn the trick that I'm going to teach you in a little. I've been delaying for too long. Let me show you the very easy way that I like to maintain algae, and I'll show you just how quickly we're going to transform this tank from this really ugly state to something looking a little bit more beautiful. So here it is. This is it. This is all you need to really maintain this tank. It's a little magnet algae scraper. So how it works is you've got this little puck, and this puck is going to come on the outside of the tank, and it's got a little felt, so it's nice and soft, so it's smooth. You can run it on the outside of your glass, and then it's got a magnet in it, and then on the inside of the tank, you've got this little scrubber part that also has a magnet in it, and they suck to each other. So what you'll have is in the middle, you'll have this, so my fingers will be the tank, and then when I move this puck on the outside of the tank, on the inside of the tank, this little scrubber with this little bit of Velcro is going to start scrubbing the algae. So let's get to it. Real simple. I'm just going to let this sink in. I'm just going to hold this there, have this be on the inside of the tank, and then have this guy just connect right there. So now I've got it all connected. Watch this. This is pretty nifty, and I'm going to see if I need to zoom in a little bit more. I think that's enough. Zoom a little bit more in. All right, here we go. Look at that. Look at all this algae just coming off so easily. This is, I kid you not, a month of algae. A month of algae buildup. Okay, so there's some parts that's a little bit tougher, but with very little effort. Look at this. This is coming clean. This is quite satisfying, actually. All right, guys, so yeah, just look at that. It's already a day and night difference. I can already see much better into the tank. And yeah, I just checked the video. We've only been going for about 8 minutes now, and we're already most of the way there. And if you just have this guy handy close by to your tank, then as soon as you see a little light dusting of algae, just grab it out, just wipe over it, and then you should be good to go. So if you can maintain that, that's half the battle. Then hopefully your tank wouldn't even get to the point where my tank looked when we started this video. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick water change here. There is also some algae that's grown on the rock, and I'm going to show you another quick tip on how to get rid of that. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started with the water change. So first what I'm gonna do is, I see my water level is a little low, so I'm just gonna bring my water level up a little bit with some RO water. Hey, there's another tip. To keep excess nutrients and unwanted nutrients or unknown nutrients even out of your reef aquarium, I really recommend going down to your local fish store and getting RO water and then just storing them in 5-gallon buckets that you can have handy, because it's way better to use RO water, which has most excess nutrients or most impurities that has been removed out of the water. I don't know if you know what the TDS rating is, but TDS stands for total dissolved solids, and that can give you an indication of how many impurities there is in the water. So a dirty lake could have a really high TDS rating, maybe around the 200s, 250s. But RO water from a fish store, that can be all the way as low as 20 TDS. That's really low. So that's also another great way to keep unwanted nutrients out of the tank. I know in the past I used to use tap water, and yes, I dechlorinate them but that just removes the neutralizes the chlorine. That doesn't necessarily remove the excess nutrients that could cause algae blooms. So there's another tip for you. So the way I do water changes is, I've got this little pump. It's a very tiny little 50-gallon per hour pump. And what I like to do is I like to use this both for refilling and also for removing water. Now, it's not gonna help you in terms of gravel vacuuming, but it is gonna help you with the water change process itself. You'll see in the time lapse, or I'll slow down some sections so you can see how I use this. So the pump itself is going to go into the bucket, and then I've got a power outlet right here coming out of the bucket, but there's just water. So I'll just plug it up and then release it into the tank. So what this is doing is just pumping fresh RO water, and so I'm just going to keep an eye on the water level. Don't want to do an advertisement for Home Depot here, but I'm just going to keep an eye on the water level to make sure that I'm getting the water level to where I know the salinity is going to be good. And it's not going to be a lot. It's just going to a little bit of RO water. All right, that's all I need. Okay, so for removing the water, I've got this standard 2.5-gallon bucket, because I'm not trying to, this is only a 10-gallon tank, so I don't want to remove too much water. So I'm gonna fill up I'm gonna remove 1 bucket load of water here. So the process is, I'm gonna take the head of the pump, that's gonna go into my tank, and then I've got my bucket here, that's gonna go just over there, and then I'm gonna turn on the switch. And so now it's sucking water from out of the tank, and it is sending that water into this bucket. Don't need this extra. Okay, so we're now at the point where the water flow from the pump, from the filter, is going to be a bit heavy. So I'm going to turn the filter off. Okay, we're starting to come up on 2 gallons of water removed. So that's going to be a 20% water change. So I'm going to go ahead and stop that now. Hopefully we don't have a siphoning effect going. We do. Remove that. Another tricky part of this algae situation I've got going on here. So this algae is really bad on the rocks. I've also got a really easy tip for that, and that you've already seen, is just take an old toothbrush, definitely not one that anybody in your house uses, but just any old toothbrush will do. And I'll show you also just how easy it is to get this algae off the rock here. So I'm just gonna move my light. So I'm just gonna get my toothbrush in there, and I'm just gonna slowly, look at that. I'm just gonna let it the teeth dig into the algae, and then I'm gonna just start twisting it and rolling it. And look at that, it's just coming right off. Look at all that. Look at all that algae just coming right off. And just take some paper towel, remove it. Real simple. Just get the teeth in it, and then just twist. get the teeth in it, and then just twist, roll it like spaghetti. See if we can get it to dig in nicely. There we go. Just let it dig in and start twirling. So simple. Look how much algae I'm just removing there. So quick and so simple. All right, so same process as before. We've got the pump. Pump goes into the bucket, and then we've got the tube here. Try to find a nice spot for it to rest in. There we do. And then I'm just gonna flip the switch, and then it's gonna start filling up the tank with salt water. And while that's happening, I'm gonna bring the light back to its position. Right there. Okay, the water level is coming close to being where I want to keep it. Get ready to switch it off, and that's good. Let's get that out of there. Alright guys, just look at the difference this process made, and it did not take very long at all. So look at how clear the glass is. All right, well, there you have it. Look at that. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please feel free to comment, engage with me. I'd love to hear anybody else's input. Like, how do you take care of your algae? Maybe you've got something else that you want to contribute. But yeah, thank you so much. See you guys on the next video.